Well, my name is Dominik Flammer. I'm a food scout and a food historian. I'm writing books about the food history, not about Switzerland, which is my home country, but about alpine cooking, about alpine traditions, because the alpine regions play a very important role in European nutrition and in European food. And I'm interested in the traditions between these countries, between the trade and the history between the alpine countries like Austria, Italy, France, Switzerland, Germany, Slovenia, and the small countries like Liechtenstein and Monaco too. Switzerland has always had a no tradition, influenced by Italian cheesemakers, with the increase of a Swiss cheese tradition during the War of the 30 Years in the 17th century. After this war, a lot of Swiss cheesemakers emigrated and influenced the cheesemaking worldwide. We could say till the end of the 19th century, Swiss cheesemakers were more important than any other country, than the cheesemakers of any other country. They influenced the hard cheesemaking worldwide in Finland, in Turkey, in Bolivia and in the United States, and 2 or 3 centuries before, especially in France. Switzerland has a tradition of hard cheese because the Swiss population started in the time of the wars in the 16th, 17th century to produce cheese for the exportation. They produced cheese especially for the French and Dutch army, for the navy, for them, because hard cheese was able to export. You could staple it on the boats, on the ships, and that's why Swiss cheese was a very asked exportation product. This has changed a lot because in the 19th century Swiss cheesemakers started to produce every type of cheese, soft cheese, mold cheese, white cream cheese, everything like that. They were very innovative. And they are still till now. We have very innovative cheesemakers in Switzerland. Some of the best cheesemakers worldwide live in Switzerland, and we have a wide variety of the best cheeses in the Alpine regions. There are a few trends in cheesemaking today, but we could say that the knowledge and the technique of the cheesemakers has improved a lot. It was an evolution during the last 20-30 years, an evolution that is based on tradition, because they saw that they needed the tradition of Swiss cheesemaking as a story, as a base for their know-how. And they have improved the techniques, also influenced by cheesemakers of France and of Italy, of other countries, not copying but improving the cheeses they produced already. And there were a lot of soft cheeses too, of blue-veined cheeses, a tradition that is very wide range today in Switzerland. And you will find today every type of cheese in Switzerland you will find in Europe too. Yeah, well, it would be my favorite would be Jersey Blue, made by a cheesemaker out of the Tockenburg in a valley in St. Gallen. This is the first one for me. The second would be very ripe Alpine Sprints. The third one would be a Vacherement d'Or. The fourth would be a cheese made by Michel Beroux, Dom Fleurette, which is a Dom Vaudoise of the French part of Switzerland. And the fifth would be a cheese of a friend of mine that is producing a fresh cheese together with different herbs and spices, which for me is a very innovative new kind of fresh cheese. The Alps always were a barrier between northern and southern Europe. A barrier that wasn't easy to climb, and a lot of the influences from north and from south, they were stopped at the slopes of the Alps. Some for only a few years, some for decades, and some for centuries. And this barrier collected all the influences from north and from south. That means the corn, the maize that came from the Americas arrived in Italy. It needed 200 years to cross the Alps. So we have in the southern borders of the Alps, we have a very tradition of the polenta, of the corn food, of the maize food. In the northern part, we have all this tradition of sweetwater fish, traditional white fish, and all the kind of types we have in the lakes. They didn't cross the Alps during centuries, But in the 19th century, when there was a lack of fish in the lakes of the southern alpine regions, like the Lago di Como, Lago di Lugano, and all these other seas, Swiss fish creators started to export young fishes to these lakes. And these are only two examples for the role the alpine regions played. And what we have today is one of the biggest biodiversities in Europe in the alpine regions. We have about 1,200 different types of apples. We have about 600 to 700 different types of pears. We have dozens of different races of goats. And all this is the base for the new slow food in the alpine regions, of the regional food that will influence, I think, the gastronomic tradition in our area within the next 10 to 20 years very, very strongly. The big cooks in the alpine regions, they absolutely go back to their roots. They are looking for milk from different races of cows. They are looking for local fruit. They are looking for local sausages, local meat and local products they won't find somewhere else. But it's normal. If you travel to Lyon in France, you don't want to drink an Italian wine. And when you come to Torino, you don't want to drink French wine. That's the reason when you go to an alpine valley, you would like to taste the taste of this valley. You would like to meet a cheesemaker, a winemaker, a baker, a butcher, tasting the products coming out of this region, because it's the taste of the landscape you are traveling in and you're living in, and you want to taste the tourism and the touristic values too.